Welcome on into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Matthew Peterson. On today's episode, I want to talk about some of the free agency news and rumors out there and how it applies to Denver. So starting off with Tee Higgins here, who a lot of people had high up on their wish list for a free agent target for the Broncos. It's either, depending on when you're watching this, about to happen or it's already happened, but the Bengals are planning to franchise tag their wide receiver. So for the sake of clarity, let's just say, even though as I'm filming this right now, I don't believe it's technically happened yet, but it's probably going to happen maybe halfway through this video. So all expectations are Higgins will be tagged, and there's a good chance by the time you're watching this, it's already become official. So the Bengals will be using the non-exclusive franchise tag most likely. What the non-exclusive franchise tag is, it's making up 95% of the franchise tags that you commonly hear. What it is the team is able to tag a player and put him on a one-year contract, and their salary is either one of two things. It is the 5 highest paid players at that position over the last 5 years and the average of that, or 120% of their salary from last season, whichever one is greater. And it'll likely be the 120%. So Tee Higgins is going to make about $26-ish million this upcoming season, although it could be the 5 highest paid. I don't know, but there's not a huge difference between the two. The reason why the Bengals are going to use this non-exclusive franchise tag is that way if a team wants, they can make an offer to Tee Higgins, and the Bengals have the option to match that offer, and if they don't match it, that team has to give Cincinnati 2 first-round draft picks. No one's going to give up 2 first-round draft picks for Tee Higgins, so this way, it's a little bit cheaper of a franchise tag when it comes to the money amount, but they do kind of run the risk, I wouldn't call it a risk, of losing T, but they're not going to lose him. So the expectation, and at this point, the belief is he will or is already franchise tagged, which means it will now require a tag and trade. We have seen players get franchise tagged before, and then the team is able to hold on to them in free agency, kind of keep them hostage, so they at least get something for the player. You know, the guy's in the last year of his deal, and it's like, you're not going anywhere this year. Trade him now. That way you can get something before he leaves in free agency. Well, this is the other side of the coin. Why trade him midseason when we can hold on to him, tag him, and then teams can make us trade offers for him, and we'll trade his franchise tag to the new team, and they can give him a brand new contract. So if you want Tee Higgins, it's not going to just be an open market signing. You'll probably pay similar to what he would have gotten on the open market, but now you have to kick in some draft capital as well. So this is roughly what I think a Tee Higgins trade could look like. 2nd round pick this year for Denver and a 5th round pick next year. It's not nothing, but it's not, extremely expensive, but it's still a good investment. I think you could compare Tee Higgins' value right now to Stephon Diggs when he got dealt a little bit older from the Bills to the Texans. The Bills got a 2nd round pick from Houston that the Texans got from Minnesota. And they also got 2 late day 3 draft picks. But Higgins being a little bit younger, I don't think as good as Stephon Diggs though, might be a little bit more expensive. But I've been very open about this when we talk about Higgins on the show. I feel dumb for not saying absolutely you should sign Tee Higgins no matter what. It's a no-brainer. But I just can't quite seem to get past the lack of availability over the past 2 seasons is concerning to me. He's missed 10 total games, and you're going to pay him to be a top 10 highest paid receiver in football. And I don't think this is like Randy Gregory 2.0 because the writing was on the wall with Randy Gregory for all the time he missed. But I do think you have to take a good hard look at someone who's missed 5 games in 2 straight seasons. 5, 10, 15. We're talking about almost a third of the games. That's a lot of production you're missing out on for a lot of money you are investing in. So I don't want to say I'm against the idea of signing Higgins because when he is on the field, he's incredible. And he's been a number 2 this whole time. So imagine what he could do with more snaps and more targets and more of everything. But you also have to be very confident that he's not going to miss any time. And his recent track record would indicate otherwise. Ultimately, I think Higgins is going to stay in Cincinnati. The Bengals, I don't think they're doing Higgins, I don't say justice because he's still making a lot of money. Like oh, worst case scenario, you make $26 million this year. Let me get my tiny violin out for you. But I wonder if this is kind of a bad move to send to other players. Like, here's how we operate. We're penny pinchers. We don't want to give anyone long-term contracts. So we'll keep them hostage. And teams can franchise tag players 3 straight seasons. Is that not what the Redskins did with Kirk Cousins? They did 2 seasons. I don't know if they did 3 seasons. But, yeah, I think ultimately Higgins is going to stay in Cincinnati with this franchise tag in place. But maybe Denver gives him an offer they can't refuse. If you were George and Sean Payton, would you do this deal right here? If it was in front of you and you had a deal or no deal button, are you taking the deal? I would not take the deal. I'd rather keep the picks and keep my money. While I do like Higgins, I don't think he's worth the money and the draft picks required to give up for him at this point here. So, no deal for me, which I know is not the fun thing to do on deal or no deal, but it usually makes you more money, so I'm not interested. Now, next up on the show today, I want to talk about some of the predictions floating out there for the Broncos in 2025, because we are starting to hit that, I don't want to say dry portion of the offseason, because there's some trade rumors out there. Combine's not far away, then free agency, then the draft. The dry part really is like June or July, but I have seen some articles about hot takes for next year, and the Broncos have come up with them in a handful of times, but not in great ways. And I want to react to that and kind of break it all down with you guys. But really quickly, we are trying to reach 33,000 subscribers here on the channel. We are less than 200 subs away. So if you are not subscribed yet, please go ahead and click the button down below. It would go a long way to improve and boost the channel so we can get more studio space, get more content out for you guys at home. So please go ahead and subscribe. It's completely free. So if you don't like it, you can always unsubscribe later on. CBS Sports came out with this article, the top 5 regression candidates for 2025. They've got the Vikings, the Commanders, the Steelers, the Broncos. I don't really know why the Colts are on there. If they had a losing record, can they really be a regression candidate? But sure, I guess they might finish with fewer than 8 wins. But here's another piece that came out from ESPN as this begins to snowball. Seth Walder wrote, the simplest way to pick a regression candidate is to look for teams with elite defenses and mediocre offenses. It's just so hard to repeat defensive success year after year. And Denver ranked only 15th in EPA per play on offense. Yes, Bo Nix might progress in year 2, but he also might not. You want to hear something crazy? They're not entirely wrong for this line of thinking. Do I think they are going to take a massive step back? No. But someone has to. I mean, just from a number standpoint, I went back to when the NFL expanded to a 7-team playoff, and I counted from one year to the next how many teams missed the playoffs after making it the previous year. 41% of teams do not make the playoffs the year after making the playoffs. It's not quite 50-50, but it's not far off from it. So when you look over the AFC playoff picture, you've got 7 teams here. The math tells me 3 of them are probably going to miss the playoffs. And I don't think it's going to be the Chiefs, the Bills, or the Ravens. So I'm looking at 4 other teams, and you got to pick 3 out of those 4 based on the math. I mean, a combination of the AFC and NFC. So not just 3 AFC teams. I should have made that more clear. You look at the NFC as well, and you're going to have about 6 teams that miss it. 5 to 6 teams from a total of the AFC and NFC. So there's always a lot of parity in the NFL. So when someone says the Broncos are a regression candidate, they're not insane for saying that. They were the 7 seed. If you're starting with who are some candidates that could miss the playoffs after making it last year, the obvious place to start is the team that, I would say barely squeaked in, but was the last one into the playoffs. So yeah, I feel like it's our moral obligation and fans should be irate and protest and make a bunch of burners and come for these guys on Twitter when they come after your team. But the math says 41% of teams are not going to make the playoffs the next year. And the first place to start is let's go from the bottom and work our way to the top for who might fall off. Now, I've got some good facts and numbers on this in just a second, but this Bo Nix t-shirt jersey is currently on sale at Fanatics. They've been going through a bunch of sales. They kind of come and go, but I don't want you guys to miss out. So go to chatsports.com/Knicks shirt. I love a jersey because it's not as expensive as your jersey, but you still get to rep your favorite team and your favorite players. So this link is in the comments and description of today's video. If you want to support the channel and you're thinking of getting a shirt anyway, go use chatsports.com/Knicks shirt. So let's talk about those 41% of teams and how they eventually missed the playoffs here. There are 11 teams that just flat out regressed. And these 11 teams make up 44% of the teams that did not make the playoffs after making it the previous year. I know we're kind of getting into a deep math web, but basically what I'm saying is of the 41% of teams that missed the playoffs after making it, why did they miss the playoffs? Well, you can see like the Browns, they just regressed, right? They were good in 2023, they were good in 2024, not good in 2025. This is, by the way, the year of them missing the playoffs. So good in 2023, not good in 2024. The Jags, the Chargers, the Giants, they just regressed after making the playoffs in 2022. Same goes for Seattle. The Packers made it, and then the next year, in Aaron Rodgers' final year in Green Bay, he goes 8-9 as a starter. So under half of the teams that barely miss on the playoffs, I'm getting myself in a word twister here, because they just suck. That's really the short answer. Now, another piece of the pie is quarterback injuries. 43% of the teams that do not return to the playoffs, that's because their quarterback got injured. Tua, Dak went down this year. Burrow went down for the Bengals. The Vikings lost Kirk Cousins. Tannehill went down for Tennessee. Stafford went down halfway through the 2022 season. Kyler Murray tore his ACL. Lamar missed time. The Browns, Seahawks, Baker, Russell Wilson, all injured. So a good chunk of the pie is your quarterback unfortunately got injured, and that's why you miss it. I don't want to jinx anything, but Bo Nix does give me Iron Man vibes. Although there are plenty of quarterbacks on those teams that also kind of give, Kirk Cousins had never missed any time with an injury until he tore his Achilles. So that's another big piece of why do teams miss the playoffs after missing it. A smaller fraction of the piece is they got a new quarterback. The Steelers went with Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky. They were not on the 2021 Steelers that made the playoffs. The Colts had Phillip Rivers retire, and they put their faith in Carson Wentz. Bad idea. The Saints had Drew Brees retire, and they rolled with Jameis Winston, who also got injured. So you could kind of put the Saints on two of these sheets right here. But I know that's a lot of numbers, and maybe I lost some of you halfway through the explanation of it. But the point I'm trying to make here, 41% of teams do not make the playoffs after making it the previous year. And of those 41%, about 43% of them were because their quarterback got injured. And I feel comfortable saying Bo Nix, well, it's very early in his career, but based on his college career, he's not a quarterback-prone type of guy. So I'm not going to read too much into Denver's defense was really good and it carried them. Denver's defense was good this year, but it wasn't all that good when they played some tough competition. So they clearly showed some weaknesses, and the offense was able to pick up the slack as well. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not here to say whether or not they for sure will or for sure won't, but I don't think it's an outlandish idea to suggest that Denver could regress, since 41% of teams do regress, but the makeup of that 41% of teams doesn't really scream Denver, since they're not getting a new quarterback, and knock on wood, their quarterback doesn't get injured too often in a very small sample size. I know that was kind of a roller coaster, and I felt like I lost myself halfway through it, but I still felt it was fun and informative to share what makes up a regression candidate. So name a random Broncos quarterback for me. This is how we're going to end the video today. Scroll on down to the comment section. Name a random Broncos QB. I've got my quarterback in mind. I'm going to count down from 3, and let's see if we say the same quarterback. I got a good one. 3, 2, 1. Paxton Lynch. Not a good quarterback, but still a random Broncos quarterback. Give me the former first-round pick, Paxton Lynch. Let me know if you said the same name down below in the comments.